I've got a great group to talk to about this. MSNBC senior White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. Julian Zelizer is professor of history and public affairs at Princeton. Reed Galen is an independent strategist and a co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Sarah Matthews knows the East Wing well. She was deputy press secretary in Trump's first term. She is currently spokesperson for the group Home of the Brave. Okay, Vaughn, give us first a sense of the pushback that seems to be growing and what the White House is saying about all of it.
Right. And number one, Chris, despite the pushback, the excavation, the demolition continues to take place in real time. Kyle is going to actually zoom in here. To give you an idea where we're at, we're on the West Wing side of the White House complex, and you can see the excavator barely up over the bushes there, taking apart the last pieces, the last remnants of the East Wing across from where, on a typical day, we do not have access to that side of the complex. That is where the First Lady's offices are. That is where oftentimes receptions are held there. It has been difficult to, of course, get those shots. The Treasury Department employees inside were urged not to share photographs, either themselves or through the media. The administration arguing for national security purposes. That is really the one way to see the actual demolition taking place. Essentially, the entire East Wing is being replaced. Everything east of the colonnade in the movie theater inside of that East Wing of the complex there. In terms of the pushback, Chris, we are hearing not only, of course, from particularly Democrats down the road on Capitol Hill, but also there's questions about the review process that typically takes place here. And from our understanding at this point in time, that typical review process is not taking place. So you go back to the Truman administration 70 years ago, it was actually passed by law, a commission, a bipartisan commission to oversee construction on the inside of the White House and the building of the Truman balcony. This time, though, the Commission of Fine Arts, I'm told, is not a part of the review process. They were formed back in 1910 to help with capital planning of any new federal construction, including here at the White House. We also know that the National Capital Planning Commission, at this point in time, it is not clear exactly what information they have been provided. The White House is suggesting that demolition is not a part of any part of a process that needs consultation for building and new construction. And when you're looking at the way that this president is kind of going about this, he is having private donors, even those that he welcomed here to the White House last week. We do not know exactly who all of those private donors are. We don't know exactly how much money they are contributing toward the building of this, but we know that even the demolition company that was contracted out for this, if you go to their Yelp account, they have been flooded with pushback, and their website, if you go to their website now, it says it's currently under construction. So there is a lot of scrutiny around this project and the lack of standard review that has been taking place here. But as you can see over the East Wing with the continued demolition here, the White House has not stopped the progress that they have already started here.
So, Julian, the White House has tried to claim this is just the latest in a long line of renovations that have been done over the years. What do you say to that?
Well, yes, there have been major renovations. After the War of 1812, we literally build a new White House. Truman does a thorough remaking of the White House because it was in dangerous condition inside, and there's been minor renovations along the way. The question is the why and the how. The why, there's a lot of concern about why is he doing this? Is it really necessary? And many people feel that it is not. And the how is what you just heard. There is no transparency. Is there care being taken to preserve the historic elements of the building, and how are they going to put this together? None of that is really known, and not to talk about how it's being funded. So I think that's where you hear a lot of outcry beyond the dramatic visual images.
So, Sarah, there are several major corporations and billionaires listed as donors for this project, including Comcast, who owns this network, and Trump's own Commerce Secretary. The White House is portraying the fact that the ballroom is being funded privately as a good thing, but is it necessarily, in your view? And I just wonder, as somebody who went into work there in the White House, what's been your thought as you've watched this unfold?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think just having that personal experience of being someone who worked in the White House, who walked those hallways, And I believe it's a sacred place. And so obviously I have a special spot in my heart for it, having been an employee there. But I think for the American people, this is tough to watch. We look at these images of the East Wing just being completely destroyed. And this is not Trump's house. This is the people's house. And there can be arguments to be made if this ballroom was necessary. And he could have gone through the proper channels then for this to get approved. But what he's doing, it just speaks to this broader narrative of the reckless destruction taking place under this administration. And not just that, but the corruption. Because you look at the list of these donors, you see companies like Meta, Amazon, Palantir. These are all companies that have bent the knee to him and then have been awarded contracts. And so it just reeks of bribery and corruption. And it's just disappointing to see, because obviously this was a historical part of the White House, and now it's going to be replaced with this monument to lavishness and the gaudiness of Trump and corruption. And so it's disappointing, and I just think that he could have gone through the proper channels if this was necessary.
So, Reed, the White House is claiming that any criticism is just, and I'm quoting here, manufactured outrage. We see what happened with the website of the construction company. We've seen headlines from some papers across the country. But do you think this is going to resonate in some way with the American people, that, you know, they're taking what is, I think, probably the most famous building in the United States and fundamentally changing the way it looks?
Well, Donald Trump has fundamentally changed the way America looks, so I wouldn't expect a great deal of outrage about this either, unfortunately. Look, I worked at the White House as well years ago, and I actually worked at the Treasury Department. And when I was at Treasury, my office overlooked what's left of the East Wing. And so I think, you know, you've seen this many places, Chris, and I think it's just as apt to say it now. This is a perfect metaphor for the Trump presidency, both of them, that before anybody has a chance to do anything about it, the wreckage has already occurred. People can complain about processes and contracts and all that, but like, it's already gone. The building is gone. And so now the question is, what's going to happen next? I mean, are they going to hang banners to Meta and Comcast and everybody else? Are they going to have their own placards saying, you know, this table sponsored by this corporation? I'm not entirely sure. But I would say this is that the real issue with this is it's yet one more distraction from the fact that Donald Trump and the Republicans promised people that life would get better, that life would get cheaper. And now, as we're seeing, everything across the board is getting more expensive. Everything is getting more difficult. And instead of trying to figure out how to do that, here's what Donald Trump and his cronies are focused on.
Sarah, I want to play some congressional reaction, and this is indeed a Democrat. It's Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal. Here's his take.
My heart breaks, my stomach turns when I see the destruction of an iconic treasure. I just can't believe that the wrecking ball is taken to this iconic structure that symbolizes America and our strength and culture, and all without approval of Congress or any other elected body.
Sarah, you live this, but do you think there's any way at all to stop Donald Trump from doing what he's doing here?
I think, like Reed pointed out, it's already been done. Look, the East Wing has been demolished, and so there really is no going back. And I think that Trump has shown that he's going to push the limits on everything that he does in this administration. And this is just the latest example of it. But what I will point out is that a lot of Republicans have been out there saying, oh, well, Obama built a basketball court. Trump is just making his latest renovation to the White House. Those are completely different things. You can't compare those two things. Obama painted lines on an existing tennis court and made it into a basketball court. Can you even imagine what Republicans would do if he had completely torn up the East Wing and demolished it? They would be calling for him to have been impeached. And so now you're seeing this with Trump, where he's going to build this $200-300 million ballroom to host these private galas with the rich and the elite and wine and dine people, all while Americans are struggling to put food on the table. And he hasn't followed through on his campaign promises to lower costs for the American people. And so it does just speak to this broader narrative of him not keeping his campaign promises and doing everything to enrich himself. This is an administration of corruption. You look at it across the board, whether it be him accepting the luxury jet from Qatar, him refusing to release the Epstein files, him enriching himself and his allies and making millions of dollars and profiting off the presidency. And now you're seeing this where the White House is literally being put up for sale and to the highest bidder, and they're basically accepting bribes. There's no way to put it.
Julian, I think she is right. There is something jarring about this split screen, a ballroom on one hand that's going up, that's going to be opulent and gold filled. And on the other hand, people suffering. The latest report on consumer prices shows everything from meat and eggs to electricity to medical care all up. Add to that, just yesterday, we reported Trump seeking as much as $250 million or something shy of $250 million in compensation for investigations against him in the Biden era. Why do you think, as you look at history and presidential scandals, nothing ever seems to penetrate this White House?
Well, it did. He lost in 2020, so let's remember that. And there was a consequence for the way he governed. Part of it is hyperpartisanship within the Republican Party basically has rendered Congress impotent. And Congress is not responding, other than occasional complaints, the Republican majority, to what he is doing. I think that's number one. The second is, look, we are learning that a president who wants to deploy power aggressively, wants to kind of live the life of the imperial presidency, has a lot of leeway to do that. And we are seeing right now a lot of norms being shattered, a lot of processes being broken, and the East Wing symbolizes how many people feel he has treated the institution itself.